Welcome back to Infidelity Scandals Unfolded. We appreciate your support and hope you enjoy this story we've crafted for you. But hold tight, because what you're about to hear might just leave you speechless. Imagine discovering a dark secret that changes everything, but it's only the beginning. Without further delay, let's begin the story. Jonathan Carver was living what many would call a perfect life. A well-respected high school history teacher, he had a beautiful wife, Christina, whom he adored, and two kids, Emma, his 14-year-old daughter, and Liam, his 12-year-old son. On the outside, they appeared like the ideal family, complete with cozy weekends at home, family vacations, and a warm, welcoming house in suburban Chicago. But despite this picture of perfection, something felt off. Jonathan first noticed it about 6 months ago during a family portrait session. As they smiled for the camera, something flickered in his mind, a nagging sensation he couldn't quite shake. He brushed it off at the time, thinking it was just stress from work or perhaps his age catching up with him. But recently, those strange feelings had become harder to ignore. It started with small, seemingly insignificant details. For example, when he noticed that Emma, his daughter, seemed to be growing up so much faster than he'd realized. She was becoming more and more like Christina in her mannerisms, her speech, her sense of humor. But it wasn't just that. There were physical traits about Emma that didn't quite match Jonathan's, traits he couldn't explain. Her almond-shaped eyes, the slight curve of her nose, even her skin tone, which had a subtle difference compared to his. Curiosity lingered in his mind, but he tried to push it aside. Then there was Liam. He was his son, of course, but something about him too didn't match Jonathan's features. Liam had a darker complexion and richer brown hair. Unlike Jonathan's light skin and blondish brown hair, the resemblance to his father was there, but it was faint. One night, while cleaning out the attic, Jonathan came across an old family photo album. Dusting off the leather-bound book, he flipped through it with a mixture of nostalgia and unease. He admired the pictures of his ancestors, his parents, and of course his own young family. But then his eyes landed on a more recent family portrait, the one from just a few months ago. As he stared at it, the same nagging feeling crept back into his mind. Emma, Liam. The differences weren't just subtle anymore. They were undeniable. He compared their features to his own childhood photos. Was it possible that his children didn't look like him? Was it possible he was seeing something that wasn't there? His stomach churned as his thoughts spiraled out of control. Unable to push it away any longer, Jonathan did what he thought he'd never do. He began questioning the one thing in his life that had seemed stable for years, his marriage. Later that evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Jonathan found himself sitting in his dimly lit study. His fingers hovered over the keyboard of his laptop, unsure if he was ready to take the plunge into the unknown. But something inside him urged him to do it. He typed, "DNA test kits. What am I doing?" he asked himself. Heart pounding. He'd heard of these tests, of course, but never thought he'd have to use one on his own family. This wasn't just some casual test. It was a decision that would unravel everything he thought he knew about his life. But before he could second-guess himself, he clicked confirm on the purchase. 3 DNA test kits. One for him, one for Emma, and one for Liam. His heart raced as he wondered what the results might reveal. The days following Jonathan's purchase of the DNA test kits felt like an eternity. His mind raced with a million thoughts, each one more disturbing than the last. Every time he looked at Emma and Liam, the feeling that something wasn't right grew stronger. Was he imagining things? Or was this the start of something much darker? His wife, Christina, seemed oblivious to the storm brewing within him. They still went about their daily routine, family dinners, helping the kids with their homework, attending weekend soccer games. But Jonathan's mind was a whirlwind. The more he observed, the more he questioned. It was late one evening, several weeks after the DNA kits had been ordered, when the email notification pinged on Jonathan's phone. His heart skipped a beat. The test results were in. With trembling hands, he opened the email. He clicked the attachment and his eyes scanned the report. First, his own results, a standard mix of Irish and other European ancestry. No surprises there. But when he turned his attention to Emma's results, his stomach churned. The percentage of Mexican heritage was startlingly high, far higher than he would have ever expected from his family line. Liam's results were just as shocking. A significant portion of his DNA also traced back to Mexican ancestry. Jonathan stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. His children, his own children, had no biological connection to him. The blood that ran through their veins was not the same blood that ran through his. This can't be right. Jonathan thought to himself, feeling a rush of panic. He quickly glanced back at the results again, but there was no mistaking it. His heart raced in disbelief. He sat there for what felt like hours, trying to make sense of the information on the screen. But the more he looked, the clearer it became. This was the truth. His mind spiraled into chaos. He replayed every moment of his marriage, every interaction with Christina, every birthday party, every vacation. Was this what it had been all along? A lie? A carefully constructed illusion that he'd been living in for years? That night, he barely slept. His thoughts raced uncontrollably. What was I missing? How could this happen? He tried to find answers, but none came. The next day, still reeling from the shock, Jonathan made a decision. He needed to know the truth. He couldn't keep living in this uncertainty. If Christina had been hiding something from him for all these years, he had to uncover the dark secrets buried in their past. He hired a private investigator. Jonathan met Frank, a seasoned PI, in a small, nondescript coffee shop on the edge of town. Frank was everything Jonathan had hoped for: professional, no nonsense, and methodical. As they sat down across from each other, Jonathan leaned in, his voice low and tense. "I need you to find out if my wife has been unfaithful," he said, the words hanging in the air like a heavy weight. "And if she has, I need to know who with." Frank nodded, his face stoic, and jotted down some notes. He didn't ask for any details about his relationship with Christina, but Jonathan knew this was the only way forward. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. As Frank assured him that he would get to the bottom of it, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to be uncovered. He had already felt like his life was falling apart, but he hadn't yet fully grasped the depths of the betrayal that awaited him. The days following Jonathan's meeting with Frank felt like they dragged on endlessly. Every phone call, every email, every minute spent waiting for updates on the investigation felt like a blow to his chest. His life had already been turned upside down by the DNA results, but he was still holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he was wrong. Perhaps there was some mistake, something that would explain the strange heritage results. But deep down, he knew the truth. The seed of doubt had taken root, and it was growing stronger with every passing hour. It wasn't long before Frank began reporting back. The first lead came after just a few days of surveillance. Christina had been spotted meeting with a man at a local park. Jonathan's heart pounded in his chest as he listened to the details. It was a routine enough scene: Christina and the man walking side by side, engaged in conversation. Nothing out of the ordinary, at least from an outsider's perspective. But the way Frank described their interactions made Jonathan's blood run cold. There was something about the way they spoke to each other, something that wasn't just friendly. It was intimate, like they had a history together, a history that Jonathan knew nothing about. Jonathan's thoughts began to spiral again. Who was this man? Why was he so familiar with Christina? Had I been blind to it all? As Frank continued his investigation, Jonathan found himself obsessing over every detail, every interaction. He began to examine his own relationship with Christina in a new light: the late nights at work, the unexplained phone calls, the strange shifts in her behavior. It all started to make sense in a way he couldn't ignore. His wife had been living a double life, and Jonathan had been the last to know. A week later, Frank delivered even more disturbing news. He had uncovered that Christina and the man, whose name turned out to be Daniel, had been having an affair for over 2 years. 2 years? The thought of it struck Jonathan like a punch to the gut. Daniel wasn't just some passing fling either. No, he was someone who had been in Christina's life for much longer. Frank's investigation revealed that Christina and Daniel had known each other long before Jonathan came into the picture. They shared a history, one that Jonathan hadn't even known existed. The more Jonathan learned, the more he felt like his world was crumbling. His foundation of their marriage had been shattered. He realized that every moment he had shared with her over the years, the vacations, the anniversaries, the quiet nights at home, had all been built on lies. But there was something else that didn't sit right. If Christina had been hiding this affair from him, why had she been so careful? Why had she managed to keep it hidden for so long? Was it only about the affair, or was there something deeper at play here? The pieces of the puzzle weren't fitting together, and Jonathan couldn't help but feel that he was on the edge of uncovering something far worse than just infidelity. It was during one of his sleepless nights, scrolling through the investigation reports from Frank that Jonathan stumbled upon something unexpected. Amid the notes about the affair, he found a mention of a secret meeting between Christina and Daniel, one that had occurred only a few weeks before Jonathan had ordered the DNA test kits. Something about that timing unsettled him. Was it just a coincidence, or was Christina's betrayal tied to the revelation of the DNA results in some way? Jonathan's mind raced. There was more to this story, much more than he could ever have imagined. But even as the darkness of betrayal closed in on him, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. After weeks of gathering information, Frank finally uncovered the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just Christina's affair with Daniel that had been kept a secret for so long. No, there was something far darker, something more sinister at play, something that went beyond the confines of a simple betrayal. The truth hit Jonathan like a freight train when Frank delivered the news. Christina had not only been having an affair for years, but she had also been hiding a deep secret about their children, a secret that had the power to unravel everything Jonathan thought he knew about his family. As it turned out, Daniel wasn't just Christina's lover. He was the father of both Emma and Liam. Jonathan felt as though the ground had been ripped from beneath him. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he couldn't speak. His mind raced, struggling to process the gravity of what Frank had just revealed. His children, the ones he had loved and raised, weren't even his. They were the product of a long-running affair, one that had begun long before Jonathan even entered Christina's life. The revelation was staggering. The affair that had begun years ago, before Jonathan and Christina had even married, had led to the birth of two children who, in Jonathan's eyes, had always been his own. But now, all at once, that reality came crashing down around him. His entire life had been based on a lie. Frank's investigation had traced back the timeline, revealing the affair's full scope. Christina had kept the truth hidden so well, lying not only to Jonathan but to their entire social circle. It was only after years of living this double life that the cracks started to show. Small, seemingly insignificant details that Jonathan had ignored until now. But the worst part was that Christina had known. She had known from the very beginning. The affair with Daniel had been a part of her life long before Jonathan entered the picture, and she had kept that secret from him for years. Even as they built their family together, she had known that Emma and Liam weren't his children, and yet she had allowed him to raise them as his own. Jonathan's mind spiraled as the full weight of the situation sank in. All the love, all the sacrifices he had made for his family, it had all been a lie. For years, he had been living in a world of falsehoods, and now everything he had ever known had been shattered beyond repair. As the investigation continued, more disturbing details came to light. Christina's secret meetings with Daniel hadn't just been about rekindling old feelings, they had been about something darker. Frank uncovered records of medical bills and confidential documents, proof that Christina had been taking steps to ensure that the children would never learn the truth about their parentage. She had even gone as far as to manipulate their family's history, creating false narratives that would prevent anyone from discovering the truth. Jonathan felt betrayed on a level he could never have imagined. Not only had Christina been unfaithful, but she had also systematically erased the truth from their lives, trapping him in a web of lies. He had been a pawn in her game, a man who had been completely blind to the deception unfolding right under his nose. The more Jonathan learned, the angrier he became. He wanted answers. He wanted to confront Christina, to demand an explanation for the years of lies and betrayal. But at the same time, he felt a deep sense of loss of trust, of family, of the life he thought he had built with Christina. And just when he thought he couldn't be more devastated, the final blow came. Christina's dark secret wasn't over yet. The last piece of the puzzle was yet to be uncovered, and Jonathan was about to learn something that would shake him to his core. As Jonathan continued to piece together the lies and deception, he felt like he was unraveling at the seams. The investigation had revealed everything except the one thing that had been gnawing at him the most. Why? Why had Christina lied? Why had she kept up the charade for all these years, even as they built a life together? He was about to get his answer, but it was the one truth he never saw coming. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Jonathan decided he could no longer wait. He needed to confront Christina. The weight of the truth had crushed him, and he couldn't live another day without knowing everything, without hearing it from her. He found her at their house, sitting in the living room, her face pale as she glanced up from her phone. For a brief moment, Jonathan hesitated, but then he spoke. "We need to talk." Christina looked at him, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. She knew that the truth was about to come out and there was no escaping it. As Jonathan sat down across from her, the silence between them was thick with tension. He felt a burning rage in his chest, but it was mixed with heartbreak, devastating heartbreak. Christina had been his world, the woman he had loved and trusted. And now she was nothing more than a stranger who had lied to him, to their children, to their friends, and to everyone who had ever believed in their perfect family. "I know about the affair. I know about Daniel. I know about Emma and Liam," Jonathan said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You've been lying to me for years. Why?" Christina's eyes welled up with tears as she looked down, unable to meet his gaze. She took a deep breath, then whispered, "I didn't know how to tell you, Jonathan. I didn't know how to undo everything. I was afraid of losing you, of losing my family. I thought that if I kept the secret, everything would stay perfect. But I see now how wrong I was." Jonathan shook his head in disbelief. "Perfect? Our family was never perfect. It was a lie, Christina. You kept me in the dark for all these years. And now my whole world is falling apart." The tears flowed freely down Christina's face now. She had no more excuses, no more justifications. She was broken, and she knew it. "I never meant for things to get this far," Christina sobbed. "I loved you, Jonathan. I loved you with all my heart, but I loved Daniel too. And when I found out I was pregnant with Emma, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, so I chose to keep it all hidden. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." Jonathan sat there, stunned by her confession. Every word she said only deepened the pain, but also gave him a strange sense of closure. He had the answers he had been desperately searching for, but the answers only left him feeling more hollow inside. The life he thought he had, the life he had loved so fiercely, was built on lies, and now he was forced to face the aftermath. For a long time, they sat there in silence, the weight of everything hanging between them. Jonathan didn't know what to say. What could he say? His marriage was over. His family, as he had known it, was a lie. And though he still loved his children, he couldn't ignore the reality of what had been revealed. Finally, he stood up, his heart heavy with sadness. "I need time, Christina. I don't know what the future holds for us, but right now I need space. I need to figure out who I am without you, without the lies." Christina nodded through her tears. "I understand. I will always love you, Jonathan. I just hope one day you can forgive me." As Jonathan walked out of the room, the weight of the moment crushed him. His life, his family, had been shattered. But in that pain, there was something else, a glimmer of freedom. The truth had come out, no matter how ugly it was. And with that truth came the possibility of starting over, of rebuilding his life on a foundation of honesty. It's been 5 years since that night. Jonathan has slowly begun to rebuild his life. He's found peace with the truth, though the scars of betrayal still linger. His relationship with Emma and Liam has grown stronger as they've all come to terms with the truth together. Christina has moved on as well, and though their paths will never cross the same way again, Jonathan holds no ill will, only a quiet understanding that life, in all its complexity, moves forward. But there's one thing Jonathan has learned through all of this. Truth, no matter how painful, always finds a way to come to light. So, what do you think? Can forgiveness be possible after such deep betrayal? Or do some wounds just never heal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've ever been through something similar, or if this story hit home for you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. We have more stories of love, betrayal, and redemption on the way. You won't want to miss them.